I wanted to ask you, like you just mentioned earlier, you mentioned about Tatum potentially returning, and that could potentially be like the trade deadline move, right? Bring him back.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you were there when you saw him play in front of the media. I think that was like a week ago or a week and a half ago or so. Um, what is that like? What was the point of that? Like, was it kind of to show like I'm coming back, or and like him coming back so soon, that would potentially mean like that would be the quickest return for an NBA player and for an Achilles rupture, right? So what did you see in that when he came back playing in that like with you talking with the media and just seeing everything there?
Yeah, it's been a question I receive every day. Where's he at? When's he gonna return? I don't have a ton of information on it because I think it's been, their most closely guarded secret this year is where he's at. But he has sent that signal from camp that he wants to try to play this year. That's his goal. That's the um, mission that he's on is to get back as fast as possible and do it at 100%. Which is we've come to learn is a bunch of baselines, checks, balance between your legs, getting into more basketball situations. And that one in particular, I wasn't there for it, but I watched it. It looks like a lot of what we've seen from him so far, and it was the most extended look we've seen at a workout from him. So I think in many ways that rose the excitement from it. But he's been playing one on one. He's been active and cutting, moving, running up and down the floor since the first video that he put out about 2 months ago now. And so that open look at his progress, him keeping the door open to a return this season, as well as the team who, Brad Stevens said that they intentionally didn't go for the disabled player exception. I think in part because they haven't needed it given their salary situation, but also to send a signal to him that we're not ruling you out for this year. I still think he has a long way to go to get on the floor in a game, but he has steadily made progress. He's constantly been around the team. Feels like he's put in everything possible to try to make that fastest comeback from a star that we've seen. And, we've seen younger players, people with more to prove, more to rush back for, in Drew Smith, Isaiah Jackson, James Wiseman of late, guys I've talked to now, along my journey this season who, were by and large ready to go around 9 months into training camp, which is important, right? You get the full ramp up, you get the preseason to work back into things. But we're about to reach the 9 month mark for Tatum here around the All-Star break, and there'll be practices coming out of that. There'll be opportunities to see where he's at in the team's first stages back. They are going to be on the road coming out of the All-Star break, so they don't have to necessarily have like the open practice time and ramp up that you would normally see from a team coming out of the break at home. But again, he's been on the road with these teams. So how much do we see him coming out of All-Star weekend into that first road trip, which is going to run through the West Coast as well as Los Angeles? He has said that he wants his first game back to be at TD Garden. And so I am looking at late February, early March, that period for him to be back in contact, 5-on-5 type activity, ramp up toward a return to play. And if he does have that month-long window or so before the playoffs, I think it is feasible to see him back in the lineup mid-March and, have a month to ramp up, play unlimited minutes and, be 10 months removed from that surgery, and, be fully ramped up for the playoffs where he'll be 11 months removed. And from doctors I've talked to, the greatest risk period of re-tearing it is 4 to 6 months. So he's past that. And every month that you take up to 12 months is going to bring you closer to a 0% chance. But he is in a strong position right now, I think, just from where he's at and the timing to make an appearance around March this season. But it will be interesting to watch because over the next 3-4 weeks here, I think we're going to learn a lot about where he's at. This period, I still have no idea about whether or not it's going to happen.
Yeah, when do you think he'll like how good do you think he'll be like when he does return this season? Like, do you think he'll be even 80% of what he was like last year, or like what number would you put like
I
stats
think
wise?
given the fact that he's not gonna come back until he's 100%, like, he will be himself when he comes back. Now, is his shooting rhythm where it needs to be? What's his role in the offense gonna be given Jalen's emergence and him probably needing to play on a minutes limit if it does happen this season? Those will all be interesting questions to follow, but in terms of, like, his physical health, he's gonna be back if he's gonna return this season. I don't think there'll be concerns about him looking weak or looking tired or not conditioned. He has certainly built up his strength over that stretch as well. So this team needs rebounding. They need interior defense. A lot of the stuff we talk about, them going out and looking for a center, he can actually provide, and he has played from some center for this team at times, especially defensively. So, yeah, I don't have any concern about him looking like Tatum. It's just a rhythm, confidence, and assuredness in that, Achilles that does take, from what I've gathered from the guys who have come back from it this year, a week maybe to feel comfortable with, which I was surprised. I actually thought that would take a lot longer to feel comfortable playing on, given the enormity of what these guys went through with that injury. But Drew Smith told me like a couple games, couple preseason games, and he felt good to go. And he was productive, didn't miss any time at the start of this year, played full minutes after being a little limited in camp. Zaya Jackson, similar deal. And I know these are different players, different bodies, different roles on their teams. It's a lot more of a burden on Tatum to do what he needs to do night in, night out. So that's probably going to give the Celtics more caution along with how much they've invested in him. But I think when he comes back, whether it's late this season or next offseason, though, aside from a minutes restriction, which he'll almost assuredly have, he is going to look like Tatum. Now, I think he's probably going to have to take a bit of a backseat to Jalen this season, and then rework his way back to that top spot, just given what they've accomplished with that dynamic this year. But I think he's shown willing to do that. I think Jalen has shown to be willing to veer in and out of a top spot, a top role on this team. And I think they both consider the bigger picture of what this team's capable of when they're both available and involved and active for this team.
Yeah, I think Tatum's journey and just kinda seeing it from an outside lens and knowing how impactful Kobe is in his, I guess, being a role model, it's kind of a unique way to look at it and just really with the season, how it's going. For you, regardless if he comes back, if they're contending or not, what is the future of this team? Obviously, it's to contend, but th are they going to be able to become the juggernaut again that they were when they had, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and all the gems, and what made it seem like they were unstoppable, like how OKC was. Like, what do you think is the plan for Brad Stevens?
I think the plan's going to be for them to just assess everything as it comes here, and that was their goal going into this year. I don't think they had a strong sense of which direction they were gonna go in, and they were willing to react to whatever happened this season, and, clearly their success has been something that they've bought into and believed in. Maybe they're a little better and a little ahead of schedule than they probably fully believe in them being at this point, so that's why you see the proactiveness of, can we upgrade this roster? Can we find pieces who are gonna help us going into the future? And that's the sense I've gathered from this front office is that their moves this year are still going to be future focused, are still going to be multi-term, multi-year deal players coming in who can help them next year and beyond, rather than just trying to find 1 year band-aids to help this group. Not to say that they're going to put a ceiling on this group or have any doubts about how far that they can go, but the understanding still here clearly is that this is a young team going into the playoffs, where there's going to be some heavy competition, where there are still powers in the East, in the league like the Thunder, the Nuggets, and more, who are the clear championship contenders at this point. And whether through internal development, Tatum returning to full form, or a number of things that this team's going to have to do, there's probably still a gap between them and winning a championship here, which is their ultimate goal, right? Like they are not focused on just having a fun, inspirational season down the stretch here. Like they want to be in a realistic position to contend again. And so much of that's going to be hindered on Tatum's comeback. And that's why there's no pressure, on him in that sense, and no pressure on this team this year to go super far in the playoffs. So if they have a competitive first round, I think they'll be satisfied with the moves that they make here as long as they're geared toward the future. Second round trip, East Finals, like they're capable of all of these things, but they know that it's next year where they're going to have to be back here. And I think that's still going to motivate some of their deadline activity here. Like, I don't think they're going to sell out for a guy to save this team at center or anything like that. I think they still want to see the guys who have been in these roles grow into that and fully assess whether they can be part of this team in the future. And I've said, what's more important than this team going on a playoff run this year is having one or two guys who are unknowns going into this year that you fully know can be part of the dynamic next year. And I think Kada has emerged in that. I think Walsh has shown signs of being able to do that. And then beyond that, you've seen some inconsistency as expected from some of the other younger players on the team. Ugo's been an exciting one, but still so early in his development here that you're not sure what he's ultimately going to be when it comes to his role on this team beyond this year. So I think they're going to be patient.
Definitely, definitely. Talking about patience, who is, I guess, untouchable? Obviously, I feel like Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum. Moving forward, everyone's going to do the trade fodder, especially this offseason. If you had to say somebody that, if people were buying a jersey, whose jersey would you be fine buying, knowing that they're going to be around for the next foreseeable future?
I feel pretty good about Jalen after the season that he's had here, where he's shown signs of being one of the best players in the league. And so, with his contract situation, with he and Tatum having the amicable relationship that they do here, being willing to make it work with each other for the sake of winning, and their commitment to him ultimately, they've had a lot of opportunities to break that duo up in more dire circumstances than this, and they've held firm. And I know Brad Stevens, obviously in a different cap environment, but throughout his tenure and even his coaching days, leading both of those guys into the players that they've become here, his vision for this team has been that if we have those two guys, we can figure it out around them and, make this roster work. And that's why they signed them to the contracts that they did. It's why that they've accepted that they're going to have a balance when it comes to the top of this roster and this two stars. And then beyond that, like, they're going to try to complement them as best as they can. And White's been a big part of that. I don't think White's untouchable into the future. I think he's a guy that you do have discussions about, given how valuable he is and where he's at in his career, pushing 30. Same deal with Peyton Pritchard and Hauser and others down the line. Like, I think everybody else beyond Jalen and Jason are, under discussion at this point as you try to reshape this core into the future here. But, they obviously had, as you guys report and others, heavy interest from other teams for Jalen, for Derek over the summer. And at least from how they tell it, they didn't seriously consider any of it, just given how good they feel about that core once Tatum's back in it. So it's expensive. They seem to have ownership commitment to carrying a salary slash luxury tax hit that allows you to keep that core together. But fortunately for them, they've shown that they don't need a splurge in other areas to be able to get consistent contributions at the floor as well as the center spot alongside those three.